Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography Podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. What if I told you the only thing standing between you and your next big opportunity is your voice? This isn't just another program. Empower Your Message is your ticket to becoming the podcast guest everyone wants. You'll learn how to craft a pitch that gets a hell yes, show up with unshakable confidence, and drop truth bombs that leave hosts and audiences wanting more. No more playing small. No more waiting for permission. It's your time to be heard. Loud, clear, and unforgettable. Visit the link in the show notes to sign up, and let's make your voice impossible to ignore. The mic is waiting. Are you ready? Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography Podcast, a platform that was created to help elevate and amplify the voices of women through sharing their stories. Today, my guest is Megan Diaz. She is a career coach. Welcome, Megan. How are you today?
Thanks for having me. I'm great. How are you?
I am fantastic. It is so amazing to finally have you here. I know we were just saying off air that we've been trying to get this done for quite a while, and I've had to cancel a few times. So it's nice to finally have you here. And so with that being said, let us jump right in. So as mentioned, you are a career coach. How long have you been working as a career coach, Megan?
About 10 years now.
10 years. Okay. And so what were you doing before you made the jump into entrepreneurship? And what was the catalyst for you making that leap into the entrepreneurial world?
So I have a background in HR and recruiting. And so I think that also sets me up to be a successful career coach, just knowing the ins and outs of how organizations work, how they recruit, the candidate experience, hiring, looking at a resume for seconds, what hiring managers are looking for. And so I think everyone ends up in their career just by happenstance or personal things that happen to them. And so for me, I was laid off from a job in tech out of nowhere. And so that I was working in talent acquisition. And at that point, it just made me, I was doing career coaching on the side. And so from there, I just decided that was my true passion and interest of helping people in their career journey. And so as a result of being laid off, I'm actually in a very unique position now where I actually work for 5 companies. And so
wow.
Yes. It's kind of entrepreneurship, but it's entrepreneurship meets consulting work for a lot of companies. So I'm working with about 200 people across 5 organizations, and it spans anything from people who are laid off from jobs in tech, which once again, I can very much resonate to since that happened to me, as well as software engineering boot camps, as well as executives. So you name the industry, the level of experience, I help people with anything in the career search realm to help them find their next role.
Amazing. Wow. 200 people, 5 organizations. Holy crow. That is incredible.
5 email addresses, Slack messages, team messages. You don't want to see my calendar because
no, probably not. I'm sure it's very organized and color coded though. Megan, what drives, motivates, and inspires you to keep going and excelling at all that you do?
I think it's the daily affirmation I receive from people, whether that's a LinkedIn message, whether that's a review on my Upwork profile, whether that's a referral. I get a lot of referrals. So I think it's just the affirmation that you are good at what you do, but also you're impacting people's lives, right? And so your career is a huge part of your life, and you want to find something where your interests meet your strengths. That's something you're passionate about. What gets you up in the morning? What are you excited about? And so helping people understand what that looks like, helping people get promoted, helping people change jobs, helping people who were laid off and all of a sudden they don't know how to job search. So I think it's a realm of all of that.
Yeah. It is so important to find that thing that sets your soul on fire, because so many people, and I was a victim of this, or I was living this too, is that they stay stuck in jobs that they hate and they're miserable and they're pissing and wishing away 5 days out of the 7 days that we have because they're looking forward to the weekend. And then Sunday rolls around, it's like, I have to go to work again. So being able to find that thing that lights you up and sets your soul on fire It is so important because so many people out there never do find their purpose or the thing that sets their soul on fire. And I think that's very sad.
And it does take a while to get there.
For
And
sure.
once again, sometimes you fall into this space. Like, I don't have a bachelor's in career coaching, right? I have a master's in education and leadership, but I'm not even a certified coach. But you don't need to be certified to be successful. And so I think that it takes a while to get to that point. And I think over time in your career, you realize things that you love doing, things you hate doing. And then I'm sure you're familiar with the Sunday scaries, right? Because when you mentioned Sunday, it's kind of, yes, everyone has a little bit of anxiety when it comes to work, right? And what's going to happen during the week or how many emails that came in over the weekend, whatever the case is. But you don't want the Sunday scaries to overpower and overwhelm, how you wake up on Monday morning.
Yeah. And I think I love that you shared that you're not certified, because I guess it depends on the school of thought you're in, but there's a lot of people who think you have to be certified to be a coach. And then there's people like yourself. Why do you have to be certified? As long as you're helping people and you're giving them advice and supporting them through their journeys, I guess it just depends on your school of thought and what your beliefs are.
I think it depends on the individual too. Some people are very dated, like, I need you to have these qualifications. But, I've been published in 45 articles on career content. I have 4,000 followers on LinkedIn. I've been on several podcasts. I have other credibility. Look at my Upwork profile. I have 55-star reviews, right? And so I think there's other forms of credibility. It just comes down to the individual and what they define as success and credibility. And I've looked into coaching programs, and there's some that are better than others, but it's the same thing. There's people who don't have a bachelor's degree that are very successful, whether that's financially or career, they've gotten promoted and whatnot. So I think it just comes down to what that individual that you're working with perceives as success.
Okay. So let me ask you this then. Have you ever once been asked for coaching certification?
No.
There you go. And there's that too, right? Who's the only people or types of people I could see asking for that would be an organization, if at all. So if you're doing one-to-one client work, I can't see someone turning around and say, Megan, can I see your coaching certification before I decide whether I'm going to work with you or not?
And also, once again, I'm employed through 5 organizations. They asked me for resume samples. I interviewed with CEOs to get these consulting roles. I had panel interviews, right? And so it's more about, what do you know about today's market? How do you present yourself? People hire you. Do they like you? Do they want to work with you? And do they think you can do the job? Right? No one's asked me for my master's degree. It's hanging up in my office, but no one's asked me for that. So I think this comes down to, once again, in today's world, industry experience is just as critical.
I don't think there is no amount of education outweighs industry experience. No, I don't care what anyone says. I will argue till I'm blue in the face. I don't care if you've got a university degree. If you have no experience in the job, how are you going to possibly do the job? Experience outweighs a piece of paper any and every day of the week.
Exactly.
For sure. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, I want to talk a little bit about the coaching industry. I've heard a lot of people say that most, if not all, coaches have been through their own personal struggles and journeys before making that leap into coaching. And of course, we as humans have all had our own shit to deal with and personal journeys. But what I found through a lot of the women that I've spoken to is that who are now coaches, their personal struggles were the catalyst or the springboard for them becoming a coach. Can you share a little bit about your own personal journey that you were on before making that leap into the coaching world? And what inspired that for you? Like, why coaching specifically?
Yeah. So to be transparent throughout my career, so I've had a lot of jobs growing up that were like grocery store, movie theater, that type of thing, customer service. I probably had, honestly, 30 of those jobs. Career jobs, I probably had maybe 15, like where I would say post-college, where professional job and whatnot. Given those jobs, I've been fired. I've been laid off. I've been through a lot. I've worked for startups. I've worked for corporations. I feel like I have a really solid understanding of the working world. And I think for me, getting different jobs, working for different industries, working for different companies, over time, I think I've learned the things that I enjoy doing and the things that I don't like doing. And I think when it comes to your career, I think this is where the coaching piece comes in. When your interests meet your strengths, that's your passion, and that's what you should try to do. And I think that the coaching comes from, once again, my background in HR and recruiting and just falling into this space. But I will say my personal journey, I really empathize with job seekers. I empathize with people who were laid off, right? Because that happened to me. And so I think all the things that I've been through and just my background that is this holistic experience kind of has set me up for success in working with people directly. And I think that people really resonate with empathy because honestly, if you've never been laid off, you have no idea the 7 stages of grief you go through. You have no idea how hard that is financially, mentally, all the things, right? And so I think that of my like secret sauce in working with people is that I get it and I'm a realist and I think people appreciate that.
Yeah, being laid off it's hard on the psyche. It's a kick in the ass. It really, because it usually comes out of nowhere.
Yes.
And I think that's the hardest part, is dealing with the shock and the surprise of that happening to you.
Yes, definitely.
So, Megan, how have these experiences helped shape the Megan you are today then, both personally and professionally, would you say?
I think something that I have personally and professionally is resilience, because I think back to going what we talked about being laid off. Every time I was laid off or fired, it was out of nowhere. And I think, yes, you can take time to grieve. Like I said, go through the 7 stages of grief. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, I was just like, you know what? I have to figure this out. I have to be strong. I have to network. I have to get back out there. And then, so growing up, my dad always said, thrive on rejection. And to me, that made no sense. But in today's world, it took me 30 plus years to understand where he was coming from. And in today's world, I have this attitude, you know what? If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. I'm not going to force it. And I think that's really important and critical. A lot of job seekers I work with, they take everything very personally. And I understand that. But at the same time, in today's world, you don't even know if a human actually viewed your application materials. So there's a perfect world where you're absolutely qualified for the role. You have the skills that they're looking for, all the qualifications. You might even be overqualified and then you get rejected, but you don't even know if a human actually took time to view your application materials. So don't take it personally. All you can do is reach out, continue to put your best foot forward. And I think resilience is also in today's market. That's how job seekers have to be.
I love that a piece of advice your dad gave you, thrive through rejection. It's so true. My dad always used to say, what's meant for you will never go by you.
Yes.
And that's it. And I love that you also shared that you don't know if a human even looked at, because I'm sure they run it through computer to see if there's picks up the keywords. And if those keywords aren't there, forget it. Your application goes in the circular file. It's in the trash. It doesn't matter. Very important points to make and good advice. Thank you for sharing that, Megan. What would you say then has been the most valuable takeaway or lesson from your experiences?
I think a few things. I think something that comes to mind is know your worth. And I think when it comes to women and negotiation, a lot of times women don't negotiate. I will tell you, I've negotiated every job I've ever had. I've negotiated personal things like, hey, I'm new here. Do you give this? Or who can I talk to about this? Or I had a great experience. How do I tell you this? So I think know your worth is one. And I also think something that has come across ever since COVID is, in my view, I feel like it's essentially you need to look out for yourself. And I think that is very critical. I know during COVID, a lot of people, the whole great resignation, resigning from jobs because of burnout and mental health. And why do companies now have mental health benefits, right? And so at the end of the day, you need to look out for yourself. If you have too much on your plate, you need to have a heart-to-heart with your manager. If you feel overwhelmed, I actually know several people right now who are taking it's not an FMLA, but they're taking a break from work. And so I think it's really important to look out for yourself, even when it comes to job offers. And say you get a few job offers, or you get a job offer and then a new opportunity comes your way. Yeah, there's a fine line between not burning a bridge, but also at the end of the day, you have to look out for yourself or your family or your personal circumstance, given maybe, what's going on in your life, whether that's financial or relocation or whatever the case is. So I think people need to look out for themselves and not feel bad, because here's the other thing. At the end of the day, all companies, you're an at-will employee for most organizations, right? So a company can literally out of nowhere say goodbye to you.
Yeah.
And so you need to look out for yourself. And all these companies that say we're families don't do that. And so I am just really an advocate about looking out for yourself and knowing your worth.
Yeah, I think back to when my dad was working full time and there was loyalty to the employees
There
back
used to
then.
be. There
used to be. It's no
Yeah.
longer, because you're right. They will let you go at the drop of a dime. It doesn't matter. You are just a number. And I think that if COVID has taught us nothing else, that things do not have to be done the way they've been doing them for years and years. My youngest daughter just got her very first full-time big girl job, and she gets to work from home 3 out of 5 days. She only has to go in 2 days a week. So the landscape for companies and businesses and corporations has drastically changed. I'm also hearing on the other side of that there are companies that are ordering people to come back into the office and work. But so much has shifted since we went through COVID, and things are being done completely different. And you have to look out for yourself, because the company, the bottom line, all they care about is the bottom line. They don't give a
Right.
shit about the employees. I worked for a company that said it was always people first. Bullshit, it's people first. It is not. It absolutely is not.
And it's not fair for the person who has been at the company, especially a lot of people that I'm working with who've been laid off. They've been at a company for 20, 30 years.
Yep.
Right? And so it takes them a lot longer to process everything. Totally makes sense. When I was laid off, I was at the company for about 2.5 years, but I think it's a lot to process. But I also think that's why it's so important to look out for yourself, because at the end of the day, like, that's all you can do.
Also, those people who've been at the company 20, 30 years, remember, they've been in that market and in that job for that amount of time. They've got to now put themselves back out into a completely different market now that has drastically changed since they were first out of the market, since they were first getting into the market. So there's also that piece too. They have to adjust. They have to change. They have to figure things out, because things are different in the market now.
Very different. And that's a lot of things that I help people navigate, just because things are different even since COVID.
Yeah.
So
amazing. Just amazing. And so how have your personal experiences shaped your coaching philosophy and approach?
I think similar themes, right? Going back to resiliency, empathy, looking out for yourself, knowing your worth, is always negotiate. The worst they can say is no, right? So I think those are overarching themes, not only in coaching and advising people on what to do and how to do it. And a lot of that's like framing and specifics and helping you understand your value add and business case to provide to that organization. But then also in my personal life, I think the same thing. It's like just not being afraid to put yourself out there, right? The worst people can say is no. We live in a very like remote networking. Actually, after our conversation, I have a women's networking remote event that I'm going to, right? On a personal level, I moved outside of California to Austin, Texas, and I moved here in the summer. And I'm not afraid to go to something alone. I've actually made a lot of friends going to something alone. And I think that it's just how you network, how you meet people, not being afraid to put yourself out there. Kind of back what we were saying previously about if something's meant to happen, that door will open. And if it's not the right place, not the right time, then I'll be able to read the room and understand that too.
Yeah, beautiful. What would you say are 3 of the most important lessons that you've learned as a coach, and how have they helped your growth as a career coach?
Yeah, I think similar themes to what I was previously sharing, right? Kind of know your worth, know your value add, always look out for yourself, always negotiate. I think those are the 3 things, just once again, of overarching themes, right? Because if you know your worth and your value add, you can explain that to effectively negotiate or essentially get what you want out of a role, and then just being able to not be afraid to put yourself out there.
Yeah. And so how has your coaching style evolved from when you first started to where you are now?
I think I'm a little bit more of a realist now. I think obviously over time you learn more of the tactical things, right? Or you do more trainings, or for example, every week I'm in a coaching call with 50 other people. I'm also part of like a coaching Slack group, right? So I've been able to immerse myself in coaching communities to better understand, am I on par with what all the other coaches are saying? So that's one thing, just increasing tactical knowledge. I think the other thing is really honing in on that empathetic and realistic approach. And then, of course, most people I meet with, I've been able to develop a relationship with them where they want to meet weekly, which is like very affirming because they find the meetings and our conversations valuable. But we also have a personal relationship where they're like, hey, how's everything in Austin, right? Or how was your weekend? And so I think it's just the more that you're into something, the longer you've done it, the more that you're able to put your own spin on things personally and professionally.
For sure. And what would you say is your greatest strength as a coach?
So as a people manager in previous roles, my team told me that I have the ability to create psychological safety with people. And I agree with that because I think that I'm able. So for example, personally and professionally, when I meet people, I'm able to understand a lot about them very quickly without digging or without feeling like I'm intimidating and coming across, tell me your life story. I think by me opening up about my life story or the struggles I've been through, or, where I'm at currently, or all the things that I've gone to get me to where I am, I feel like that automatically makes someone relate to me and makes them feel open to sharing. And so I think having just like this very open, very like just from the beginning, creating psychological safety so that people feel like they can share anything with me and know that it's safe and know that I'm here to support in whatever's most helpful.
Yeah. When you said, tell me your life story, it reminded me of the old way of networking meetings, how people would walk around with their business cards and, so tell me, what do you do? And on that approach is so dated and it just doesn't work anymore.
And I also think it's really tough too when someone has been laid off and you go to an event, the first thing people ask you, whether you're at like a happy hour or wherever you're at, right? A housewarming party, wherever you're at, the first thing people always ask you is, what do you do? And I think that I understand how that's a very normalized question, but it's very sensitive to people who've been laid off. And when I was laid off, I stopped going to social events because I was so sick of getting that question.
Yeah.
And how do you answer that? And also, once again, people who have been laid off in today's market, they're top performers. And that's why it's so competitive right now. Right? We still don't know the rhyme and reason how people are laid off, given company decisions and all of those factors. But I do think, yes, your career is a critical part of your life, but you're also a lot outside of your career. So ask me what else I like to do. And so I think that can be a little bit challenging at times.
Yeah, our job or our career does not define who we are.
Right.
It's exactly. And that's the old way of networking. I have this vision in my head of people walking around with a stack of business cards and handing them out. So what do you do? And
now it's the LinkedIn QR code, right? And so it's like, add me on LinkedIn. It's like today's technology driven world. It's like, I went to a networking event a few months ago. I was just adding people with the QR code on LinkedIn. So
there you go. What are some of the most common challenges that your clients face in their careers, and how do you help them overcome those obstacles?
I think I'll answer this question given today's market, because I think today's market is very competitive just because of all of the layoffs. And right now it's an employer's market. And so employers have the luxury to look for that unicorn talent, look for that niche person. And so I think the challenge for job seekers is really honing in on their story. And what I mean by that, how they come across on their resume, how they come across on LinkedIn, how they come across in the interview, to be as specific as possible to what the company's looking for. And then also asking the right questions to the interviewer to better understand what they're looking for that might not be prevalent on the job description. And I think a lot of job seekers think that, I should talk about everything I've ever done. No, that's not a targeted or strategic approach. And given today's market, you need to be as specific as possible so that you are that unicorn candidate. And I think that in today's market, once again, it's taking people longer to get jobs. Companies are slower to get back to candidates. And so I think the more that you can come across very precise, clear, targeted focus, then the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, for sure. Now, burnout, of course, has become a buzzword. We hear it used and thrown around all the time. And we're seeing and hearing a lot more about it, especially among women. This is a very common theme that I've experienced hearing through conversations among women. What tips or suggestions do you have for your clients to recognize, first of all, and prevent burnout in their careers?
So I think there's a lot of tactical strategies like blocking your calendar, not taking calls after XYZ timeframe, putting your computer in a separate place at night so you're not seeing it. You're physically separating your space if you work hybrid or remote. I also think that having a relationship with your manager to basically say, I have too much on my plate. Can we reprioritize what absolutely needs to be done? Because I think burnout is a result of too much work and work that needs to be done too quickly given certain time frames. So I think understanding prioritization, being able to not be afraid to talk to whoever those stakeholders are so that you can minimize some things if possible. And then I think having the famous buzzword work-life balance, right? And so what does that look like? And I think every day someone should do something personally for themselves, whether that's walk outside, have their favorite cup of coffee, go socialize and do something, read a book, whatever. And I think that having that separation, whether that's breaks throughout the day, every day I have to end my day at 5:30 p.m., whatever time zone you're in, because I think that helps to draw that boundary as well.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing those tips and advice. What do you think is one of the most critical factors in achieving long-term career satisfaction and success?
I think it's how the individual defines success. And of course, companies have KPIs, OKRs, all of those nonsense goals, if you ask me, because a lot of times those are not attainable, right? Or to get your bonus, you need to do XYZ things, but there's other factors that involve that. Like you're not the only stakeholder in that process or project or customer feedback, whatever the case is. So I think it's how you define success personally. And I think it's what are you doing to continue to up level, whether that's LinkedIn Learning, or are you part of Slack groups or networking community? Are you learning something new every day? I always tell people that you learn something from every conversation. And so even the old, saying is people, even when you have a job, always take the call. And so I think that's just a way to continue to learn something, make a connection, and continue to progress in your own career and talk to people. What does success look like for you? Or what tips do you have for me? Or, for me, I was talking to someone the other day and they were telling me something about something called Friday finishers. And basically what that means is, okay, what have you done from Monday through Friday? What are the things you want to finish by Friday that kind of rounds out your week and completes your week? And I think for, I have my daily list of things to do personally and professionally. And so at the end of the week, how do I summarize my week, right? What did my week look like? Where did I achieve success? And what does success look like to me? So that when I close my laptop for the weekend, I feel, that I did XYZ, I helped XYZ person.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you mentioned take the call when it comes in, because I think that people, when they're in a job, it's like, okay, I'm here, that's it, I don't have to do anything else. But I think that we should, if their opportunities are out there, brush up on go to interviews, brush up on, keep your interview skills up, because you never know what's going to happen. Like you said, that company could just say, see ya, we don't need you anymore. And then you're left out in the cold. And if you haven't done an interview in 20 years, holy like that can be incredibly overwhelming.
Right. Or if you haven't networked, or you're just like, where do I start? Because I haven't done anything, which I understand. Time is of the essence. People are busy. People have families, personal lives.
For sure.
Try to travel and take vacation, whatever the case is. But you never want to be in that position where I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, exactly. How do you encourage clients to take risks and step out of their comfort zones to achieve their career goals?
So I think some of that comes with practice. And what I mean by that is, once again, a lot of women statistically don't negotiate. And so I think people don't know in coaching, a lot of things when it comes to interview prep or sending an email, it's all about framing and being strategic and being able to share your business case and value add. And so that's when I work with people one-on-one, because a lot of times some people lack confidence, right? If they haven't done it in a long time, or they're afraid of rejection, right? And so I think I work with people one-on-one to understand, okay, where are your fears? What are the disconnects? Where do you have skills gaps? A lot of people too that I meet with, they often talk about the things that they're not good at. And I tell them, don't focus on that. Focus on the things your strengths and what you are good at. And now do we carefully craft a strategic reach, or whatever the case is, to achieve XYZ goal.
I think that, and I love that you said this too, is focus on the things that you're good at, not the things that you're not. But I think we could tie that back to education. Growing up as kids, right? When you were in the school system, it's like, I'm not so good at math, so you need to focus more on getting your math skills up. But on the other side of it, I'm really good at English. So why we should be focusing, like you just said, our energy on helping the kids hone those skills and those things that they are very good at. Not to say discount math for me because I'm no good at it, but I think we need to put more of the energy into focusing on what kids are good at, because then that leads into them as they're adults. They just know, okay, I'm going to focus on this because this is my lane. This is my area of expertise. This is where I need to put my energy, not into something that I'm not good at, because we cannot be good at everything. It's impossible.
Right.
So why not work on strengthening your skill sets that you are good at?
And I also think, for me personally, the things that I'm not good at, I have no interest in learning more about. And I think that if you have no interest in learning about something that you're not good at, there's two sides of the coin for this, right? One side of the coin is, I really want to get better at that. I'm not good at it. It's not how my brain naturally operates, but I really want to learn that because my goal is to do XYZ job doing that. And I totally understand and respect that. But for me personally, if I'm not good at something and I have no desire to do it, it's going to literally drain my energy. And it doesn't make me motivated. It actually demotivates me because it feels like a chore. And so I think the things that you are good at, you most likely will enjoy, or find that intersection, right? The things that you're naturally good at that you enjoy, that's the route you should be going. And to your point about kids, if you start young, then you're self-aware, first of all, and then you're also able to create different career paths, or even if you go to college, understand these are the majors I should entertain because I've already identified that as interests and strengths.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I love that. What is your advice for professionals seeking to make significant career change later in life?
So this is timing. Right now, it's not a good idea. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm saying it will be significantly harder given the existing market conditions. This is not a market to pivot your career. This is not a market of transferable skills. This is not a market for employees to say, oh, we'd love to train you and spend $18,000. So I think you can absolutely change your career. That's absolutely possible, but you need to be cognizant of the market. And so if right now, given the current market, what can you do on the back end to level up, right? Is there LinkedIn learning? Can you have coffee chats with people who are in XYZ role in industry of interest and understand from them, do I actually need that certification? Is that actually valuable? Or what information and insight can you give me that would help me fill that skills gap? So there's always something you can be doing on the back end when it comes to training and professional development, but being cognizant of the market is a key factor into how you can actually pivot into that. Of course, there's things like volunteering, or maybe you can level up your LinkedIn network to get connected with more people. Once again, have those informational interviews and coffee chats. So you can always be doing that on the back end. But I do think that being aware of the market is in your best interest for when it makes sense to actually make that move.
Yeah. And I love that you shared that you can still continue working and work on the back end in your spare time to level up your skills. Take a class, take a online course, whatever it is in that area that you are thinking about shifting into. You don't have to jump right away. You can get yourself prepared if it's not the right time in terms of, as you said, markets, the way the market's going. What legacy do you hope to leave, Megan, through your work as a career coach?
I think something that is powerful is those constant referrals, right? And think, once again, it dates your expertise. If people think of you, they got a job through you, or you helped them overcome something, or they succeeded in XYZ interviews, right? And so I think that brand awareness and so I've gotten referred to so many people where it's 5 people later, I'm like, wait, how do we even get connected? And so I think that is like a good legacy to leave, because it shows that you have an extreme value add and you're able to consistently add value to people's lives, people that you've never met in person, people that are in a different time zone, people that, once again, you're like, how did I even connect to you?
Yeah, for sure. What is one of the most important things you've learned in your life? And what was your life like before you learned it? And what was your life like after learning it?
I think lately I've been like, take the chance, take the risk. You have nothing to lose. I think my kind of life motto is you have nothing to lose, because the worst something or someone can say is no. But by putting yourself out there, you're going to learn something new. You're going to embrace I don't know, a new opportunity or make more connections, or this person can introduce you to this person who could maybe be, I don't know, your future best friend, someone in your life who makes a significant impact, or someone you could introduce to other people. So I think don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And I think don't be afraid to take a risk, because once again, the worst that can happen is no. And if it's not meant for you, it's not meant for you. But if it is meant for you, then that could lead to so many opportunities personally and professionally.
Yeah. So many doors could open for you. Absolutely. What is an unexpected blessing or occurrence in your life that you are grateful for?
So I think just on a personal level, so I grew up in California my entire life. Grew up there, went to college there, grad school there, worked in Silicon Valley for the last 15 years. And I randomly moved to Austin, Texas in the summer. And I think it's very unexpected. I never thought I'd live in Texas. Been in California forever. And I feel like ever since coming here, I've been able to be immersed in a lot of like sports leagues, my dance studio, networking events. There's always something going on here. And I feel like it was totally unexpected, but I think that's part of my personal journey that, I work remote. So I think having the flexibility to be involved in all these things. And once again, going back to the other theme I just mentioned of putting yourself out there, joining these sports leagues alone, going to XYZ thing, because I think that also helps you be a holistic, well-rounded person for exposure to people and exposure to new experiences. And once again, that could lead to maybe more speaking opportunities or, for the cases, on a professional level.
I'm just curious, what caused that shift for you to move to Texas of all places from California? Like, why leave California and why Texas specifically?
Yeah. So once again, personal story, I was with my boyfriend for about 10 years. I broke up with him and just wanted to start over. And there were 5 places outside of California that I was interested in living, that I'd obviously traveled to many. Austin just seemed like a great match for younger professionals and just in general, a lot going on here, a lot of activity. And yeah, it's been a crazy, unexpected, wild ride, but it's honestly been amazing. The Southern hospitality is real.
Kudos to you for taking that leap. That's a big leap to move states and just where you know nobody, just pick up and go. Kudos to you for doing that. I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
Megan, who in your life has had the biggest impact on you and why?
I would say my family. I think that the way I grew up was with my parents saying, you can do anything you set your mind to. I grew up very independent. I started working when I was like 15. My parents were like, hey, go get a summer job. I came back with 4 job offers. And I ended up working at a movie theater. I ended up working for an after-school kids program, retail. I ended up working at the mall. And so I ended up coming back with all these jobs. And it set me up for the work ethic because I worked for 6 companies. And so it's kind of like you can do anything you set your mind to. I think the environment that you grow up in is somewhat indicative of how you are as an adult. Obviously, things change and whatnot. But some of those solid foundations of how you grow up, work ethic, being independent, and just being confident and trying new things.
It's so key to have that support and belief in you as you're growing up when you're younger, to get the support of your parents and the encouragement, of course, to believe that you can do anything you want. Anything is possible for anybody, for everybody. But unfortunately, not everyone is brought up that way or taught that way. And some people end up having to learn that later in life, which, I mean, it's great that they learn it later on, but it would be great if we could do that for our children from a very young age so that they just grow up knowing that's possible and it's fully ingrained into who they are. It becomes part of their DNA. They embody that because of what they're taught.
Exactly.
What do you think your unique skill set or superpower is that's helped you become successful?
I think my superpower is 2 things. I think 1, I'm a realist and I tell people how it is, but I also am very empathetic. And so with the strength finders, one of my top 5 strengths is empathy. And I also think, for example, in my current line of work, I work with a lot of individuals who were laid off. I've been laid off. I've been fired, you name it, it's happened. And so I actually really resonate with people. And I think if you haven't been through that traumatic experience, I know people who haven't been through that and they say they can relate to it. You can't relate to it unless you've actually been through it, because the 7 layers of all the things you go through, depression, then you go through all the
grief,
phases.
all of it.
Exactly. And so I think although my approach is like very direct in the sense of here's some tangible things that you can do, or based on my experience, I'd recommend this. Based on what I know about you, here's what I would think. And a coach never tells people what to do. They give you advice given your situation and given their own experience. And so I think my 2 superpowers of being a realist combined with empathetic, I think really goes a long way, because it also helps me to develop relationships with people, because people can say, you get it, and I trust you.
Yeah, for sure. You're right. People can't relate fully to those experiences if you haven't gone through it. I think you can have empathy for someone who's going through these things, but you cannot relate unless you've been through it, unless you've experienced it yourself. You can't fully relate. It's impossible because you don't know what it feels like because you haven't experienced it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Speaking of success, how do you define that word? What does the word success mean to you?
I think some of it is affirmation. And what I mean by that is you want to be self-aware and you want to understand your strengths and what your value add is, but it also needs to be reciprocated by those individuals. And so I would say daily, I receive emails from people saying this was so helpful, or I just got a new job, couldn't have done that without you. And so part of that is the affirmation from the individuals you work with, kind of proactively telling you this is great, or referring you to someone else. My call right before this was someone who was referred to me, who found me on LinkedIn. They've now referred me to their friends for interview prep, job search advice, just chatting about careers. And so I think it's a combination of getting like feedback from people you're working with, getting referrals, and thing related to someone saying, hey, you've been super helpful.
Yeah, for sure. What does the word empowerment mean to you?
When I think empowerment, I think the ability to put yourself out there without fear. I think being bold. I think being able to feel like you can overcome something, achieve something. You're empowered to do that because you are in a mindset, and it's mindset too. Mindset in the sense of, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do something new. I'm going to, I don't know, do something that you wouldn't think that you could do. And if you're not empowered to do that, it would never happen.
Yeah, very true. I love that. Okay, we're going to jump into a little rapid fire section. So the next grouping of questions just be 1, 2, 3, 4-word answer type thing, okay? Megan, how would you describe yourself in one word?
Bold.
What is your favorite self-care practice?
Going outside.
If you could teach the world one thing, what would it be?
Confidence.
What's one thing you want but cannot buy with money?
That's a great question. I think last time I said a husband, which that's still pretty accurate, but more on the personal level. Everything, let's be honest, everything, and I know I'm violating the one word policy here, everything is centered around money. That's just reality of life.
Okay. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Encouraging.
What is one thing you love about yourself that is not related to your physical appearance?
Confident.
What is one word that describes the woman you're becoming?
Independent.
Beautiful. That concludes our rapid fire section. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. I sent you a bonus question, or I created a bonus question for you that I did not send you ahead of time. If you could take one feeling or one belief and bottle it up and give it to people, what would it be?
This is a little bit related to what I said previously, but I guess it is full circle. Confidence. I think that no matter what it is, a job interview, going up and talking to someone new, trying something you've never done before, not being afraid to put yourself out there. I think being confident gets you a long way in any aspect of life.
For sure. I would agree with you 1000%. What is your why?
I would say in my line of work, helping people successfully navigate their career is a huge part of life. I think there's a fine balance between making sure that your job isn't your life, but it's a big aspect of who you are. It's kind of why people go to college. It's how people afford to live their lifestyle. So I think it's centered around day to day. It's the first thing when you go to a networking event, and the first thing people say is, what do you do?
What do you do? Yeah.
And by the way, I hate that question because there's other aspects to me outside of my job. What if I'm employed? Right? That's awkward. The point is, I think in my line of work, the why is to help people understand their strengths, their interests, their passions, their career and life goals, and how that intersects with everything else that is their personal goal.
I like the piece you mentioned about the balance part of it, where it doesn't become your career, your job, your business doesn't become your life. But that is a very fucking fine line to walk, especially as an entrepreneur, when you love with all of your being, what you do. It's hard to draw that line in the sand where it's like, okay, I have to set this boundary for myself so that I don't get caught up in continually working, because I'm sure you know this, and I know I can speak to this, where using my photography as an example, I would do a shoot, I'd come home, I'd edit, and I'd be up till 1, 2 in the morning and not even holy shit, where did the time go? Because I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I get absorbed right into it. It becomes I'm just so immersed in it that I lose track of time. So that's a very fine line to walk, and it's hard.
And I think the one quote that helps me with that is, work will always be there. Will your family, will this experience to go travel and do XYZ, whatever. And I think that unfortunately we live in a society where it's like everything is Slacks and emails sent to your phone. You're expected this quick turnaround time, response time.
Yeah.
Respond to me in 24 hours. It's like, oh my gosh, where are you? So I think society doesn't really help with that.
Yeah, for sure.
A negative, but I also think that you can't be successful unless you take a break or have a hard stop or do something self-care related.
It's a learned behavior for sure, especially when you love what you do. But there's little things I think you can do, like take a break, get up from the computer and go outside. If you're working from home, go outside, go for a walk. I think another important thing to remember too is you teach people how to interact with you. If you're up and responding to emails at 1 o'clock in the morning, people are going to say, oh, Brad responds, so I'm going to keep sending emails.
Right.
So you've got to learn these behaviors to shut that shit off and cut it off at a certain time so that you do not create this, what's the word I'm looking for? Create this behavior, for lack of a better term, or teach people how to interact with you by doing things like that.
Exactly.
It's about setting boundaries.
And once you set that expectation, then people assume you're always available.
Yeah.
But I think the double-edged sword of that for me is one of my best practices in my work is if it takes me 5 minutes or less to do something, I will do it because you can knock things very, very quick and feel very productive. But the problem is the 5 minutes or less does get you that very quick response time. And so then as soon as you're MIA or you're on vacation or you take half a day off and people are kind of, wait, where are you? And then I think when people don't work with people who respond as fast, they don't know what they're getting when they're working with people who are very on it. So I think there's a lot of like double-edged swords there.
For sure. But we have to, especially I think as entrepreneurs, we have to implement the self-care piece of it where you can step away. It's okay to do that. It's okay to take time for yourself. You don't have to work 18 hours a day. But this is this conditioning and this hustle culture bullshit that we have been brought up and taught to believe is the way you need to do things. If you're not working hard, you can't succeed. If you're not working hard, you can't make money. Bullshit. That's not true. But it's a mindset shift. And it's a behavioral shift too.
Exactly.
If you could step into my shoes, what question would you have asked yourself that I didn't ask you?
I don't know if we want to air this, but you have interviewed so many people on all these podcasts, right? What makes someone memorable?
What makes someone memorable? You're asking me that?
Yeah. Yeah.
The tables have turned. I think for me, what makes someone memorable is their willingness to be authentic and vulnerable. And share from the heart. Just be who they truthfully, honestly, authentically are. No bullshit. No, I think this is what people want to hear. Just share who you are. Share from your heart. Just be who you are authentically. Share your story. Because we all have a story. Every single person on this planet has a story. And it is, in my opinion, it is each person's responsibility to share that story, because that story, I can guarantee you, with the amount of people that I've interviewed, that story will impact somebody out there. Even if it's only one person, it will have an impact on someone. And that's what you're here to do, is to impact people. So
Definitely.
that's what I would say. That's what makes someone memorable.
Yeah, I agree.
But what question would you ask yourself that I didn't ask you? For you.
For me, that's a good question. It would be centered around advice for someone. That would be more related to like career, right? If someone is stuck in their career, what advice would you give them? If someone feels lost, if someone feels undervalued, if someone is unhappy, if someone, all of those things. It's almost a case by case basis, but I think it's a question sometimes that often comes up is, what advice do you have for me to be successful? And I think the way I would answer that is, even if you have a job, I'm sure you've heard this saying, always take the call. And so I think my biggest takeaway is, if someone invites you to an experience, a conversation, a coffee chat, someone thinks you might be a good match for XYZ, whether it's a role or a friend, you just moved to a new town, wants to introduce you to someone. I think the biggest takeaway is you have nothing to lose. You can learn something from every conversation. So always take the call or take someone up on it, unless you feel, that it doesn't make sense for you for whatever reason, and you can provide context around that.
Okay, so I'm curious then, because you mentioned it. What advice would you give someone who feels stuck and doesn't know where to turn in their job, doesn't know what to do?
If they feel stuck, I think they would need to do like an evaluation, like an audit. So what are the things that they enjoy doing, and how does that intersect with their strengths? So when your strengths meet your interests, those are the things that you should be targeting. So have you written down all the things you're good at? Have you asked people, hey, what do you think my strengths are? If you're in a current role, what are the things you don't like about that role? Have you evaluated internal and external factors, whether that's something about the culture or the company that you can't change? And so I think it's just starting with an audit of where things are at. Why might you be unhappy? What's your end goal? What steps do you need to take to get to that goal, as far as bridging certain gaps, things like that. And that's when I would work with someone one-on-one to really extract the answers to that in more of a conversation. But I think you can always start kind of just that audit and writing things down and understanding the gaps.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Megan. If you had the opportunity to sit down and have a 1-hour conversation with one woman, any woman in the world, who would it be and why?
So I have read all of Colleen Hoover's books. I love all of her books. They're just like easy read. And I think her background was like a little bit rough to start. And so just hearing more about her story and how she gets inspiration to write these books, I think would just be fascinating to hear. Once again, women empowerment, right? Like here's where you started, here's where you're at. Like, what advice would you have for women along the way? And then just how do you get, like I said, inspiration to write these easy to read books?
Yeah. Okay. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
So this is more tactical than anything, but I think if you decide to go to college, or you decide on your career path, and this is also just a result of today's market, choose an industry or a job that's never going to go away. I think once again, this is me being a realist. I think that with the evolution of AI and technology, and just in general, the way that the current market is, choose an industry that will always be there, choose a role that will always exist, because that will just, you'll never have a fear or doubt of being potentially unemployed. Again, realistic, career-driven approach there.
Beautiful. Lastly, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, your corner of the world, your tribe, your people, what would that last 30 seconds sound like? What words of wisdom would you impart?
So this is really a little bit off the radar here, but I would actually rather have people talk on my behalf. And what I mean by that is, how do you know me? How do you see our friendship, our relationship, our evolution of what we've been through? And I feel like there'd be a lot of overarching themes in that, right? Whether it's one word, or stories of growing up, or stories of how I met them, or overarching themes of how I am. And I think that's more powerful.
Beautiful. Megan, thank you so much for taking and making the time to be here with me today. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. It has been an absolute pleasure. I am honored to have you as a member of the Empowerography community and to be able to call you a friend. Keep shining your bright, beautiful light. Thank you for sharing your story, your journey, and the beautiful light you put out into the world through the work you do.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Once again, my name is Brad Walsh, host of your Empowerography podcast. Today, my guest has been Megan Diaz. She is a career coach. Thank you so much, Megan. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at viseuphoria.ca, follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast, and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.